Man, it feels good to be somewhat back to a reasonable degree. Hopefully, I can start making videos more consistently. Well, hello everybody, I'm back. No Ian, still. Horrifying revelation, I know. But, it's just me, for now. I'm hoping to get more people in here, especially with more content on the way. And for my first video for coming back, I don't know how to segue this into properly, but we are covering 40k content. Now, I like 40k, I like 30k, but I'm not going to go into lore of it. I'm not going to go into like the intricacies of every detail. If you're watching this video, you probably already know about the setting, or you know the basics, or you've read every book in existence, even the books that were never published. The fan content we're covering today is the Crimson Eagles and the Iron Legion. They're made by two awesome, amazing people, Taylor and Kato Sicarius on Instagram. Once I get registration back in fixed, I will include links. But for now, I will include images. These guys went to an incredible length to... I don't even know how to even describe it. So, the Iron Legion, made by Taylor for Art, I probably butchered that, is 66 slides long. 66. Granted, the Crimson Eagles are less, but it's still a lot of detail. I'm not going to be able to cover it all in one episode. I'll probably have to split it up to two. One is in a basic overview, and the other one as an actual full-length episode, which will definitely kill me for a couple of weeks. Well, with everything out of the way, and as my first video back, I think we should start with probably the person I talked to with about this, well, their faction, Kato Sicarius Crimson Eagles. So, the Crimson Eagles are interesting because most of their history is shrouded in mystery. They were once a proud chapter with a homeworld, Castor Secundus, on the border of two segmentums. Tragedy struck in the most, what's the word I can call this without violating TOS in the first 10-20 seconds of this video, Fustercluck, that was the Alpha Legion, during the 8th Black Crusade, which is 5 Black Crusades away from the 13th Black Crusade. Isn't that crazy? The world was obliterated, as one could expect from Alpha Legion shenanigans, although it's a lot more extreme since a lot of their operations are more along the lines of sabotage and banana peel slipping. And with that, it took most of their records. That's a very rough start, because not only did they lose their home, they almost lost all knowledge of their founding and gene lineage. For a millennia, they wandered the galaxy. They were a fleet-based chapter, desperately searching for any scribe of information about their past. Imagine being a dementia-riddled... well, not dementia. More like somebody that has no clue of why they're here, they're just fighting. Like, I don't know my parents, I don't know my brothers, I don't know who my giant 8 to 10 foot tall dad is. Man, my life sucks, but I was handed a gun anyways and I had to be thrown out there and get it all done. It was up until the Ultima founding and the arrival of Primaris Marines where they finally learned the truth. They're the sons of Ultramar, the sons of Big Boy Roboot Girly Man. Kato Sicarius put a bolter to my head for that one, I am very sorry, making them Ultramarine successors. Chapter Master Marius Calgar, the big man himself, John Space Marine 2, welcomed them back into the fold. The reunion gave him access to the Ultramarines' archives and started piecing together their history. It's possible they might be, tongue twister for me, than they thought, possibly dating back to the 10th founding, not the 19th as they previously believed. The 10th founding is way back then. I'm not even sure myself. Honestly, that could be the 35th millennium? I think it's mid-35th. This puts it back in the same era as some pretty famous chapters, maybe some infamous ones. Guys, I wonder who? It's totally not, I don't know, the Astroclaws? Yeah, the Astroclaws, guys. Don't we love them? And the Angels of Wrath too, which are Dark Angel successors and they're pretty neat, I'd argue. Um, well, they're neat in the fact that, you know, in the age of apostasy and Doge Van Dyer, it's a long line. Anyway, the Crimson Eagles are known for their diverse recruitment because at this point they have to pull neophytes from all sorts of worlds they drop by. So they drop by a world, they take a child, they recruit them, but it's not in the normal Space Marine way of like psycho-indoctrination and brainwashing using vril edits. It's more like they teach the value of, well, human life, which is rare among Space Marines, considering some of the more famous Space Marine chapters, or any Space Marine chapter that isn't the Salamanders, or has any relation to a heart or some goodwill. It's killing civilians is sometimes a necessity and sometimes out of fun, but they're always trying to minimize their own losses, which is why they favor durable armor like Gravis and Terminator. Well, yeah, Gravis and Terminator armor is kind of like the big heavy armor. Strategically, with the Gravis armor and Terminator armor, they're masters of boarding actions, void warfare, and combined arms. They're also known for unconventional alliances like the Eldar, Leagues of Votann, and even the Tau. The Eldar specifically, they've been working with multiple times, and even went to work alongside the Iron Legion against the Slaneshi Demon. This has raised some eyebrows in the Ordo Xenos, but their effective against Chaos Forces cannot be understated, which keeps the other Ordoses off their back. Speaking of alliances, they have close relations with chapters like the Void Angels, Salamanders, Raven Guard, and, of course, the Iron Legion. They even formed a bond with the Vitrian Dragoons of the Astra Militarum, but they've also made enemies, like the Black Templars. You know, the possible 4,000 to 5,000 Marines. But, you know, it wasn't like it was anything too bad. It was only a brutal 2-week-long battle, which for 40k standard, it's like a single Tuesday night. But the main thing is that the Crimson Eagles are a chapter defined by their search of identity and their approach to survival. To me, at least, they're a testament to the resilience of mankind rather than the Space Marines. They're all individuals who don't have a home anymore, which relates them to the older generations of humans, considering those generations of humans probably saw their own Earth transformed into Terra. You know, the giant planet-spanning palace thing. I'm pretty sure the Custodians have been sick on me for messing that up. And the nice thing about this is that there's hope, and there's always a glimmer of lighter tones, considering the fact that a lot of 40k homebrew content is either darker or simply not safe for work. I'll keep it at that. It's nice to see a faction balanced out with just, you know, being hopeful. It's a nice break from the grim dark and the over necessity of depraving elements. Oh, what's this? They have tabletop units? The Aquila Terminators is, well, your Terminators. They're 130 to 260 points. And the biggest thing is that they're, well, character hunters. They wield power axes and Volkite chargers, harkening back to the heresy. And the heroic bodyguard make them fantastic protectors for your warlord. As for a good warlord choice, or any warlord choice to be honest, is Remus Aesius. Aesius is a well-written character, and to put him simply, he is a broken man that has been reforged and broken again. To be honest, the only thing I can recommend for this man is a hug and therapy, which I don't even think any apothecary can provide at this point. But anyway, you can run him in Terminator armor or just Tacticus armor, which is just normal power armor. He gives off a 4-up Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, and on top of that, he is one beefcake. 5 wounds, 4-up invuln, 2-up save, well, 3-up save in normal armor, and 2-up save in Terminator armor, alongside having a weapon jinx, which once per battle, he can make a weapon fail and even make the user take D3 damage, which is very silly to say the least. As for Hellblazers, they're Gravis-wielding Hellblaster squads. The reason why they're wearing Gravis armor is to prevent further losses and casualties. They have a unique rule called Priority Target, which means when they target an enemy unit, they can reroll the wound of 1, and if the target of the attack is on objective, you can reroll instead. This makes it incredibly powerful considering the recent changes to Oath of Moment for Space Marines, which is a +1 to wound. So, considering that they also hit on 3s and then can hit on 2s, it gets a bit silly very fast. I could definitely see somebody kit bashing a squad of these guys because we don't see heavy plasma incinerators really anywhere if I remember correctly. I do believe it's only in Space Marine 2 that we see them, which is a really sad thing. Oh, speaking of weapons, I forgot this, but Remus brings to the table 2 unique loadouts. Well, 2 unique ranged weapons. If he's in Tacticus armor, he gets Solitude in a special bolt pistol that has precision. It has enough damage to kill a Space Marine, but considering Chaos Marines have 2 health, that's very fitting, considering the Crimson Eagles hate them to death. As for the Terminator, well, you get the Dragon's Breath Combi Flamer. Who's to say? Combi weapons are back, and to be honest, I prefer a more traditional style of combi guns compared to the new system. Anti-infantry just ain't cutting it. I miss my different options. Having the ability to whip out a torrent weapon when instead of a bolter is very nice. And he's only 75 and 85 points respectively, which is very cool. However, the Hellblazers, the blasters, there's a difference, I think. The Hellblazers do not have a point cost yet, but I would heavily recommend probably putting them at 140 or even 130 starting out. And they start from a squad size of 4, and they can go up to a squad size of 8. Man, that was a lot. I really hope I don't have to go through that again. Oh. Hello, Iron Legion. All jokes aside, the Iron Legion, by quote, "Our brotherhood of Astartes like no other, having access to technologies of old. The Iron Legion are constantly making upgrades to their armor with the help of their secret AI allies. The Adeptus Mechanicus and the Inquisition distrust the chapter and due to their own hypocrisy, the warriors of the Second despise these fools. Putting the safeties of the citizens of the Imperium above all else, they fight and die for the hopes of better tomorrow." End quote. This is really, like I said before, this really shows off why the 2 groups like each other so much. They have very similar ideals of protecting, well, humanity and human values. These guys have been around for quite a long time, around the Great Crusade and even the Horus Heresy, because they represent the Second Legion. Essentially, they were explored with, exploring the stars and other galaxies if it were possible. They were kind of like the White Scars before they were founded by Jagatai Khan. The Iron Legion had little to do with the Horus Heresy, considering, it was distrust on both sides. However, Tayloris Galatea, Primarch of the Second Legion, decreed that his legion would be loyalists and fought with the Ultramarines and Shatter Legions when that met with one another. I'm probably putting this around Calth, since that would make sense. After the Heresy, Galatea and Guilliman discussed on what to do with the Iron Legion. The 13th Primarch suggested that Tayloris and his sons carry on with the mission that their father had given them. And with that, so he did. He took half his legion with him, and then leaving the other half to follow the codes of Astartes. This follows lore really well, to an extent. But if we ignore that to extent, this follows the lore that Word Bearers believe, or it's possibly true, that the 2nd and 11th Legion were absorbed into the Ultramarines. So that's very nice. Besides that, during a Marine Scout years, along with being master of technology, they are master of diplomacy as well, and even to the point of learning Xenos language. For example, a Space Marine Scout of the Iron Legion would be taught as many Xenos languages as possible, which is another reason why they fight so effectively with the Eldar, and to the point with their cousin chapter, the Crimson Eagles. Which I could see them going back and forth about the Eldar language, considering one has been taught the ways to get Eldar by Guilliman, and the other just being taught their language. I think this would also really go back to the days of early 40k, where not a lot of people understood the Eldar language, to the point where the Inquisition just made up words for the Eldar. I think it was the 2nd edition Codex. Craftworld Eldar. I could be wrong. But anyway, Figurius, which was a planet found in a segment in Tempestus. Oh my god. It was named after the holy Terra itself, due to its beautiful land, oceans, and forest. It was essentially a spitting image of Terra before, its transition to a giant planet-wide empire, but what do I know? Similar to their cousin chapter, the Salamanders, they're encouraged to interact with their civilians, which is another reason why they work so well with their brethren, the Crimson Eagles. I don't know why I almost forgot that. Due to the liveliness of the planet, it attracts the gaze of a certain race, the Tyranids, and because of its population, the Drukhari. Yet the planet still stands, unlike Cadia. The monastery, known as Ironheart, is about a country size, which could range anywhere from, Chad to China or Russia. A red and gold ceramite covered base of operations, but it's also a school and a home for many, which is really nice, and it's a nice change to the pace of big monastery meant for holy religious purposes and killing stuff. Their biggest thing is having adaptive strategies, which means when a certain man known as Leandro Caris rewrote the codex to fit the chapter, and it was more of using it as a suggestion rather than a rulebook, which is funny because that's how the Ultramarines use it, but a certain somebody called Leandros took it as a rulebook. Oh, Leandros, how did you even get so far? Anyway, after about 10,000 years in the return of the Primarch, the chapter still uses the codex today rather than toilet paper, which is surprising. Nonetheless, the chapter still uses their own squad formations, for example the Iron Guard, where their weapons are laced with plasma energy, which is pretty rad all considered. Once more, I'm not going to go into depth about everything, but they do have some successor chapters, such as the Grey Waves. The Grey Waves are the second successor chapter of the Iron Legion. They're known for their efficiency with chainswords and flamers especially, and they adore melee, and by quote, crushing the bones of Xenos under their boots. Which just means I think the Black Templars would get well along with them, which would serve the complete opposite, considering, their cousin chapter, the Crimson Eagles, do not like them that much. The Knights of Terrelius are interesting because they are a chapter that has defended the Manchestian system, once more, I'm not spoiling anything here, and other nearby systems for over 10,000 years. They're interesting because they're named after the noble woman that Taylor befriended during the Great Crusade, and it's even reported that some Battle Brothers even claim to see her roaming the halls of the Fortress Monastery. Who is Taylorus Galatea, you may be asking? He is the second Primarch, taken in by House Galatea on Terra Secundus. They fought like knights of old, or knights of Caliban, I suppose. Due to this, the Primarch grew a sense of love and honor for his family. And when the Emperor found the world, it became a beautiful world full of technological prosperity and wonders. And with this, the Iron Legion was handed over to Galatea almost immediately. After the heresy, Taylorus and half his legion explored the stars, finding curious allies and brothers in arms. When he returned, he found the Imperium besieged on all sides, and he still fought on nonetheless, which is a lot considering a lot of Primarchs were either taking a nap, regenerating, or were just not here. They were either too busy chasing Logar to his tower, having their hand cut off, or just being a wolf. I don't know how to explain Lehman that well. I'll have to catch up my lore on him. He hasn't been doing anything for about, almost 10 millennia now. But anyway, for Taylorus personally, he's armed with something called the Light of Justice, a giant plasma sword that splits flames of light. So, kind of like if Celestine was in a sword, but plasma. He also has something called the Failnaught, a combi plasma of such power that even heavy tanks avoid it, which is very funny. All I can imagine is just this wrist-mounted combi plasma that a Primarch's wielding, and a Baneblade cowering behind just the smallest amount of cover. Alongside that, his armor, the Spiritus suit, or the suit of Spiritus, has an inbuilt force field, even having the ability to deflect incoming damage to the closest foes. He's really proud of his sons. I would be too. I mean, after all, they've been doing this for over, the Great Crusade now? But anyway, I won't spoil the rest, because we have a lot of gameplay stuff to cover. We get into detachments first, that being the Plasma Storm, which is all about rerolling your hazardous weapons. You know, because hazardous tends to kill stuff. And if it has a plasma weapon or is stayed stationary, it has +1 to the wound roll if it's targeting a vehicle or a monster. There's a couple of enhancements in here. The one I'm pointing out here is Deflector Shields, giving a 5-up Feel No Pain to Terminator units, and on an unmodified rule of a 6, the nearest enemy unit within 9 takes 1 mortal wound. As for the Iron Force Knight Extremis Force, your Adeptus Astartes gives the ability to advance and charge, and if it has the mounted, flying, or hover keyword, they may reroll both of those, which makes them very scary, especially for your Lances of Galatea units, which we'll get to in a minute. One of their key things is the Intelligence's keyword, so it gives you Scout 9, but if you control an objective before the enemy, it is now booby-trapped. It's kind of like the nerfed version of that one booby-trap rigged stratagem from the Vanguard Spearhead from the Adeptus Astartes Codex. Iron Force Primarch Sun are all about putting your army into battle tactics, which is kind of like the Gladius Task Force attachment, but better. You can only use a battle tactic twice per game, but considering you have 2, that means you have 4, so that covers most of the game. For example, you can take battle tactic Ruin, which you get the heavy keyword, and if it already has the heavy keyword, you have +1 to the wound roll. Or if it's honor or death, you get assault keyword. Or if they already have the assault, they get the charge if they advance. You really see the Ultramarines bleed through here, because, you know, they're all about tactics, and it makes sense something fitting to the original Ultramarine attachment for 10th edition is seen here. The standout detachment here is His Chosen, which upgrades the plasma pistol, and if it has a massive crafted power weapon or relic weapons, it gains sustained hits and devastating wounds, trying to symbolize the Primarch's own arsenal. As for datasheets, there is a lot. I simply can't cover all of them here, unlike the Crimson Eagles, but what I can do is go over the most notable ones. For example, Taylorus Galatea is playable here. He doesn't have any point costs, but, you know, that's just one free Primarch to take. And he has a lot of things. For example, Inspirational Leader, you get to pick one of 3 abilities, such as having the ability to reroll all failed and wound rolls on a selected Adeptus Astartes unit that targets an enemy. The Master of Technology, where you get to, you know, ignore hazardous, to just name 2. Also, I lied in post-editing. He costs 325 points, which is very good. And he comes with the Supreme Commander keyword, which makes sense since, you know, he's a Primarch for Christ's sake. As for normal units, if you could even call them that, I have to point out Dread Knight Aradbar, which has, I don't know, a giant-ass sword, literally called the Dreadnought Power Sword. He hits like a truck, and not to mention he deals D3 mortal wounds when he charges. Yeah, he's earning his 250 points. Cornus's Retinue is also another unique unit that I'm not spoiling here, but to keep it short, they were former squad mates of, well, Cornus when they were in the Second Company. Brother Felix, Sylvian, Hector, and Echo have fought honorably for about 5,000 years now, which makes them extremely old, which harkens them back to the 35th millennium, which also ties in with the Crimson Eagles, because they were around there, supposedly. Cornus's Retinue has a lot of options, but the biggest thing is that the chapter's finest swordsman, which once per game you get +1 to the strength and damage of the unit's melee weapons. But if it's targeting an enemy character or an enemy character unit, you add +2 of both instead. For 150 points, it's very nice. And there's a bunch of named characters, which I can't even go over because once more, I don't want to spoil anything. I think everyone needs a good read of this, and then I will do a second episode. To really say I don't want to spoil any of this again, take a shot for every time I've said that by now. is underestimated. 2 people on Instagram wrote all of this, and it's very nice to see something different than the usual 40k shenanigery that is Grimdark or 2 Grimdark. And to wrap everything up, they have a plasma gunship. This plasma gunship is a truck. You can transport up to 6 Adeptus Astartes jump pack models or 3 Gravis models with jump packs. And it has a 20 movement, T10, 12 wounds. And that will wrap us up for both Iron Legion and the Crimson Eagles. This video isn't perfect. I'm trying to get back into the flow of things, and it's probably not best that I try to do a tribute, I suppose you could say, so early on. Which is why I make it remaster this video, which will be longer, or shorter, or both, at some point down the road. I do have personal content down the way relating to Expanded Universe, specifically the core rules and other stuff as well. Besides that, I hope everybody has a great day, night, morning, afternoon, Eternal Cycle in Hell, or the Twilight Zone. Goodbye, and see you next time.